Why Purges. Today we are going to be looking at a brand new poem called The Early Purges by Seamus Heaney. So our learning intentions for this lesson. Number 1, I can understand the importance of verbs and the effects they can have. So we're going to be looking at verbs when we're reading the poem, and we're hopefully going to discuss them on our live class, and then we're going to have written work to do on them as well. I can analyse the poetry tools used in the poem and use at least one poetry tool in my own writing. So we'll see this towards the end of the lesson. Whenever we come to do our written work, we'll be analysing the poetry tools and creating our own. And the third learning intention, I can share my responses to a poem by explaining my own emotions through designing a creative poster. Okay, my shiv. So this poem is by Seamus Heaney. Who was Seamus Heaney? Seamus Heaney is regarded as one of Ireland's finest poets. The US President Joe Biden has even called Heaney his favourite poet, and often Biden recites Heaney's poems during his speeches. Seamus Heaney was born in County Derry in 1939. However, he moved to Dublin and lived there for most of his life. During his life, he wrote 20 volumes of poetry. Okay, so that's a lot of poems. A lot of his poetry draws on everyday experiences and his childhood through growing up in rural Ireland. Heaney died in 2013, but his poetry still holds a very strong legacy throughout the world, and more specifically in Ireland. So, in Queen's University in Belfast, there is a Seamus Heaney Poetry Centre. Okay, this was officially opened in 2004, and here's a plaque just in order to remember Seamus Heaney and to celebrate the fantastic poetry that he composed. So, this is the poem, okay? So I'm going to read through it now. The Early Purges by Seamus Heaney. I was 6 when I first saw kittens drown. Dan Taggart pitched them, the scraggy wee shits, into a bucket, a frail metal sound. Soft paws scraping like mad, but their tiny din was soon so used. They were slung on the snout of the pump and the water pumped in. Sure, isn't it better for them now, Dan said. Like wet gloves they bobbed and shone till he sluiced them out on the dunghill, glossy and dead. Suddenly frightened, for days I sadly hung round the yard, watching the 3 sogged remains turn mealy and crisp as old summer dung, until I forgot them. But the fear came back when Dan trapped big rats, snared rabbits, shot crows, or, with a sickening tug, pulled old hens' necks. Still, living displaces false sentiments, and now, when shrill pups are prodded to drown, I just shrug. Bloody pups. It makes sense. Prevention of cruelty, talk cuts ice in town, where they consider death unnatural, but on well-run farms, pests have to be kept down. Okay, Purges, so that's the poem as a whole, Early Purges. We can most certainly see that it is to do with the cruelty towards animals, and it could potentially, depending on your own opinion, view animals' lives as worthless and less worthy than humans. So you're obviously going to be listening to this goohoo before you come onto the Rang Bia, and what I want you to do now is think about what you think the poem means, okay? So get your own opinion, so whenever we come together on the Rang Bia, you will be able to provide your opinion. I have here inserted an analysis of the poem. However, I'm not going to read through that. I want you to quickly read through it before we hop on the Rang Bia. I have attached both these slides in a Word document with today's lesson. So I want you to read through them and read all of my annotations, okay? So all of the notes I've made. If there's anything you don't understand, I want you to come to the Rang Bia prepared with questions, and I will be able to answer them for you, okay? So hopefully we'll have time to do this on the Rang Bia, but as I said, on Wednesday we're going to be doing a Kahoot as well, which is more like revision. So if we don't have time to do this verb work, it'll be in the Google Doc for you to do with your written work for the rest of the week. The first task is make a list of all of the verbs that are used in the poem. So there are a lot of verbs, okay? Try and write down all of them. So we're not going to do work on all of them. Once you have composed your list, I want you to choose 3 of your favourite verbs from the poem, okay? The 3 verbs that you find most powerful and most effective, and I want you to tell me how you think they are effective. So for example, if we go back to the poem, let's take this verb trapped, okay? So I'll give you an example. Where did it go? So when Dan trapped big rats. So if I wanted to say that I thought the verb trapped was effective, I would write it down on my writing work and I would say this verb is effective because it shows that the animals had no power. They had no choice as to what was happening to them, okay? So if you imagine they're in a trap, perhaps a cage or something, so they don't have freedom, they don't have the power to make decisions, okay? So that's how you would explain how it's effective. So this is going to be our second written task, and we're going to use the point, evidence, explain structure to answer the following questions. Okay, it's been a while since we did this, so I don't want you to be worrying about expand today. We're going to work back on building up our point, evidence and explain. So your point is your basic answer to the question. Your evidence must be a quote from the poem, okay? Therefore, if you're using a quote, you must use your speech marks. And then your explanation, you're going to tell me why you made this point. So this is because, and then you're basically going to explain it all to me, okay? So there's only 4 questions, so I want them done properly and correctly. Number 1, how does the poet highlight the weak and defenceless nature of the kittens? Okay, so you're going to have to go back and reread the poem and think, whenever he's talking about kittens, they are defenceless and weak. So your point is going to be, the poet highlights the weak and defenceless nature of the kittens by, and you're going to tell me what he does. Then you're going to give me your evidence. This is clear from the quote. Open inverted commas or speech marks. You're going to write your quote and then you're going to close your speech marks. Then you're going to explain it to me. This shows me, this tells, from this we can see, and then you're going to explain it to me. Your evidence, your point sentence and your explanation sentence should not be the same. What do I mean by that? Your explanation sentence should not read, this shows that the kittens are weak and defenceless. No, that's your point, okay? You need to explain it further to me. What does it show? How does it show you this? Number 2, what effect did the drowning of the kittens have on the young boy? So again, you're using your point, evidence, explain. Look back and see what the young boy is telling us whenever the kittens have been drowned. How does the boy's attitude to the killing of the animals change as he gets older? So we can see from the poem that it starts off with him as a young child. He's very frightened. He was only 6, okay? So he's using all this language and imagery and descriptive words to tell us what's happening. But then eventually we learn that he forgets them, okay? So does he get used to it? Is he still always horrified? I want you to write that down. And number 4, how does the poet use poetry tools effectively to portray Dan Taggart's treatment of the animals? So I want you to pick at least one poetry tool. If you can find another obvious one, which you should be able to do, I want you to write down 2. So the poet uses these poetry tools. Tell me what they are, give me a quote, and then explain the treatment of the animals, okay? So the poetry tools, we obviously haven't looked at them yet, but that's what our Kahoot's going to be based on. Remember, you were supposed to revise over them before the live lesson. Task 2. This is our final task, okay? You're going to design a poster against animal cruelty, okay? So what makes a good poster? Your poster must have a catchy slogan. What's a slogan? So we touched upon this whenever we were doing our election campaign as well, okay? So often posters don't have a lot of information because they're designed to catch your eye when you're driving by or walking by. Perhaps they're going to be on a wall. So it's not like a book or a news article. There's never going to be a lot of information in it. A slogan is something that is short and snappy, okay? So here's an example. Animals have no voice, but you do. What does that mean? The animals can't tell you to stop doing this, but you can fight for them and you can, okay? An effective emotion evoking image. So emotion evoking, what does the verb evoke mean? It means to start and to create, okay? To turn on almost. So if you had an image that's emotion evoking, it's going to make me feel emotional. It's going to make me feel sad, okay? You can draw one, get really, really creative if you want to. If you're not too good at drawing like myself, you can use Google Images, okay? So use your unique colours and fonts. I want you, if you're handwriting it, to get really colourful. Get your pencils, your markers, whatever you have out. Or if you're doing it on Word document or Google Docs, make sure you're availing of all the fonts and colours that are there for you. Facts and statistics, make them up, okay? This makes your poster stronger. 3 out of 10 dogs are left outside alone, okay? Something like that, okay? I don't know if that's true. I made that up there off the top of my head. Make it up, okay? You're trying to evoke emotions in your readers, in your observers. And the last thing your poster must include is everyone's poster must include at least one poetry tool: alliteration, metaphor, personification, simile. Okay, and as I said, you'll have a better understanding and recap of them again once we do our Kahoot. So here's some examples of posters. Okay, so this one here has a statistic in it. Dog abuse makes up an appalling 5% of total animal abuse. So as I've said, your facts and statistics don't have to be true. You can make them up. If you want to do extra research on them to make it true, that's perfect. Look at this one, really colourful, okay? Fur is only beautiful on the original owner, and there it has the alliteration of the original owner, okay? And then there are some more examples for you, okay, Carja? So what you have to do before your Rang Bia is get thinking of any questions you have about the poem and what you think the poem means. We're going to come together and we're going to discuss that, okay? And then this written work will be uploaded on Google Classroom as well. I won't be putting any lesson up on Wednesday. The written work will be completed during Wednesday's lesson, and then we'll come together live again on Friday. Michael Oracardja, Chief Mayor Balshiv.